History tells us that the greatest strength of Mesoamerica was not in one empire, but in the many nations that lived side by side. Long before the Spanish set foot on the land, alliances had already shaped the destiny of the region. Some alliances were for trade, others for survival, and many were made in resistance to powerful states. This was the world the Europeans would enter, though it was already complex, already political, and already burning with rivalries. In the heart of central Mexico stood the Mexica, known as the Aztecs, who forged the Triple Alliance with Texcoco and Tlacopan in 1428. That alliance expanded quickly and dominated vast territories. Yet many tribes resisted, refusing to submit to heavy tribute and control. These tensions would lay the foundation for future cooperation between resistant groups. Among the most defiant were the Tlaxcalans. Surrounded by Aztec territory, they lived in constant conflict. But their unity in face of pressure made them skilled in war and strong in leadership. This endurance would one day prove decisive when the balance of power shifted. Further east, the Totonacs endured Aztec tribute collectors. Heavy demands for goods and labor made them resentful. In the west, the Tarascans of Michoacán built a strong empire of their own, resisting Aztec attempts to expand into their lands. Each of these groups carried scars of war and memory of survival. The Maya, far to the south, were divided into many city-states, yet they too understood alliance and betrayal. They fought one another, but they also created pacts to resist stronger neighbors. Though divided, their memory of confederations stretched far back into the Classic period. It showed that cooperation was not new in this world. The world before conquest was not peaceful, but it was balanced in its own way. Power shifted between empires and coalitions. Some tribes grew tired of war, but others sharpened their skills, preparing for chances to rise. The story of Mesoamerican resistance would be built on this foundation. As we move deeper, the truth becomes clear. The alliances of indigenous peoples were not sudden acts born only from Spanish invasion. They were rooted in centuries of conflict, tribute, and shared memory. The stage was set, but the greatest struggles had not yet begun. In 1428, a new force changed the map of central Mexico. The Mexica of Tenochtitlan, together with Texcoco and Tlacopan, crushed the Tepanec state of Azcapotzalco. This victory created the Triple Alliance, the power that would dominate Mesoamerica. Its armies marched across valleys, mountains, and coasts, bringing cities under its control. The system demanded tribute in goods, warriors, and labor. Cotton, cacao, food, and feathers were sent to Tenochtitlan in endless streams. For some, submission meant survival. For others, resistance was the only path. The Tlaxcalans, Huexotzincas, and Cholulans often stood against this growing empire. Their alliances were fragile, sometimes united, sometimes at odds, but all shared the burden of facing Aztec might. This struggle kept them hardened, their armies always ready. Further east, the Tarascan state held firm. Armed with strong metallurgy, they resisted Aztec expansion into Michoacán. They defended their borders fiercely, one of the few who kept independence. Their defiance stood as proof that not all could be bent under one power. Resistance alliances were not only military. In markets, in marriage ties, in secret councils, cities worked together to keep autonomy. Some cities pretended loyalty while quietly forming pacts with neighbors. This hidden web of trust and suspicion made the world unstable.
One of the greatest controversies of this era was tribute. Many smaller cities asked themselves if alliances with each other were strong enough to face the Triple Alliance. Breaking away risked destruction, but staying in line meant endless payment. This tension kept resistance alive. By the end of the 15th century, the Triple Alliance reached its peak. Yet cracks had already formed. The resentment of tribute-paying cities grew, and their leaders remembered their oaths to one another. They waited for a chance when unity would matter most. When outsiders arrived on the shores, that chance would come. But the alliances of resistance did not begin with foreigners. They began here, against the Aztec rise, in the struggle for survival among indigenous nations. The storm had not yet broken, but the winds were gathering. In 1519, Hernán Cortés landed on the coast of Veracruz. At first, he was only one commander among strangers, but the alliances he would forge changed the fate of empires. He understood that without indigenous allies, no conquest was possible. The first major allies came from Simpola, the Totonac capital. The Totonacs saw in Cortés a chance to end Aztec tribute demands. They welcomed him, offering warriors and guidance. It was a dangerous gamble, but they believed it was their moment. When Cortés marched inland, he faced Tlaxcala. At first, Tlaxcala resisted fiercely, fighting him in open battle. The battles lasted days, and many were lost. But Tlaxcala soon saw the same possibility, an alliance against the Aztecs. The decision divided the Tlaxcalan elite. Some feared the trail. Others argued survival depended on new friends, no matter the risk. At last they chose to ally, and thousands of warriors joined Cortés. This alliance was the turning point. Tlaxcala became the core indigenous force in the war against Tenochtitlan. Their warriors fought in every battle. Their knowledge of the land was unmatched. But alliances were not without controversy. Many indigenous leaders asked, were they trading one master for another? The question haunted councils and villages. Yet the chance to end Aztec power outweighed the fear of the unknown. Cholula, however, paid dearly for hesitation. Its rulers leaned toward the Aztecs, and Cortés responded with massacre. The event shocked the region. It showed the danger of standing in the middle. As the march toward Tenochtitlan continued, more cities joined. Old grudges came alive and new pacts were sealed. Indigenous unity, once unthinkable, became possible through shared resentment. The conquest was no longer foreign versus native. It was a war of alliances. The march on Tenochtitlan brought unity, but also mistrust. The Spanish were few, but indigenous allies were many. Without them, the conquest would not advance. But tensions rose as victories and betrayals unfolded. The first great turning point was the welcome into Tenochtitlan. Moctezuma II allowed Cortés and his allies into the city. Many indigenous allies saw this as a trap. Suspicion was everywhere. Then came the Night of Sorrow, La Noche Triste. The Spanish and their allies fled the city under attack. Many allies fell that night, carrying scars that would never heal. Yet they regrouped, more determined than before. The siege of Tenochtitlan in 1521 was the climax. Tens of thousands of Tlaxcalan, Totonac, and other warriors surrounded the city. Canoes filled the lake, streets filled with combat, and houses burned. This was indigenous unity in action, though under Spanish command. But not all agreed. Some groups resisted both sides, holding to independence. Oaxaca, Mixtecs, and Zapotecs struggled with shifting loyalties. In Michoacán, Tarascans resisted until Spanish steel and disease broke their defense. Division remained as strong as unity. Some cities regretted their alliances when tribute demands returned, now for Spain. The question of betrayal hung heavy. Had they won freedom or traded one ruler for another? Still, the fact remains. No conquest was possible without indigenous unity. Their decision to fight together changed the map of the world. But their hopes and fears would not end with the fall of one city. The consequences were only beginning. After the fall of Tenochtitlan, the alliances faced new realities. The Spanish established New Spain, but indigenous allies expected reward. Tlaxcala received privileges, exemption from some tribute, lands of their own, and honors in colonial life. Yet most allies saw fewer rewards. The Totonacs faced new demands, now from Spaniards. The Tarascans, once independent, lost their state to conquest.
The Mixtecs and Zapotecs entered uneasy alliances with Spanish officials. The Maya continued resistance for decades, some for centuries. The legacy of these alliances is complex. They showed the strength of indigenous unity against powerful empires. They also revealed the cost of division when unity was broken by mistrust. The story is not of simple betrayal, but of survival. One lesser-known fact is the role of indigenous women in these alliances. Figures such as Malintzin, also called Doña Marina, acted as interpreters and negotiators. Her presence made communication possible between worlds. Without her, many councils could not have formed. Another forgotten story is the quiet alliances among smaller villages. Many are not named in chronicles, but they gave food, guides, and soldiers. Their sacrifices are hidden, but they were part of the resistance. Without them, larger cities could not have stood strong. The greatest consequence was cultural survival. Despite conquest, indigenous traditions, languages, and identities lived on. Alliances had not saved sovereignty, but they had saved memory. That memory still speaks through the ruins and words of descendants. The story of indigenous alliances in Mesoamerica is one of courage, strategy, and loss. It reminds us that history is never simple. It is full of choices, risks, and hopes that shaped the future. It was not the story of one empire or one invader, but of many nations deciding together.